Hello, is this Mr. Bobby Elliott?
Sam.
Yes,
Yes.
this is Sam.
This is me. This is Bobby Elliott. Yeah. Yeah. Bang on time, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I seen the clock hit 1 o'clock. I was like, okay, I gotta do this.
Yeah.
I get this
Yeah.
now.
So what are we? Is it 4 hours, 5 hours? Which city are you in?
Well, I'm not in the city right now. I'm in little village, Blandford, Nova Scotia.
Oh, Nova Scotia. Right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Ah, nice.
yeah,
So that is that 4 hours difference?
yeah. So yeah, over here it's
Yeah.
1:01. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nova Scotia. Right. Yeah. Never been there.
Oh, okay, okay. That actually answers one of the questions I had. Was have you guys ever performed in the maritime provinces? And
Halifax up there, isn't it?
yeah, Halifax, capital city. Yeah.
Halifax. Also, Halifax is about 10 miles away from where I am now, in Halifax in Yorkshire, in
Oh,
England.
right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
So I'm up in the north of England. I'm at this moment in time. I'm about 20 miles north of Manchester as a crow flies. But no, to answer your question, no, I don't think we've ever played Nova Scotia, but we've played, New England. We were there a few years ago in Cape Cod, the Cape Cod area.
Right.
Did a few concerts there. We were probably there in the 60s as well, but I'll have to consult my diaries to look at to sort that one out. Yeah.
Right on. I'm just checking to see if this is recording or not. I hope it is. I had the Skype recorder set up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sam, what happened to the notebook and the pencil? The press guy with the hat with the press ticket in the top. Is that's all gone, has it? Yeah. So it's all recorded now, is it? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. We're recording, aren't we?
Yeah, we're
Testing.
we're
Testing.
testing.
Get the red light on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds
Yeah.
me of the early days at Abbey Road Studios. The first time we went in there, the red light went on, and we all started performing like a load of chimpanzees. It was so excited. Yeah, red light. It was like business. It meant let's get down to it and rock.
Yeah. And from watching like other interviews and stuff like that, you guys once the light came on, it was you got straight to it, and there's no fooling around or anything like that.
And not so much in the early days because you felt so honoured to be to escape from the north here, which was in those days when the Hollies started out, 1962, 63. That's obviously the early 60s. We'd come through the austere sort of 50s, when we'd been at school, and it was like not long after the war when you think about it. We'd had food rationing and all sorts of things. So it was pretty grim. So we started playing in our separate ways, and soon realised as we became more and more successful in different bands that this was a method of escape from the drudgery and treadmill of the industrial north of England.
Right.
And Tony Hicks and I had a band called the Dolphins that worked round here. I'm still in the area where we grew up, up in the Pennines, near the Bronte country and all that sort of thing. Wuthering Heights area. That's where I live now.
Right on.
And it's very pleasant now, but in those days, being a musician or dreaming to be a musician was frowned upon because it was that was not the norm up here. It wasn't like nowadays. People are encouraged to follow their whatever their pursuits and whatever they seem to be gifted with. It was a bit of a fight, but we all stuck at it, and it was, as I say, it was a means of escape, and when we were semi-professional musicians, Alan and Graham were in a band called, they had various bands, and Tony and I, as I said, were in a band called the Dolphins. We found that we were working from 2 nights a week up to sort of almost 5-6 nights a week, and doing our sort of apprenticeship or whatever it was during the day, and consequently we were earning more money than than we were in our what would be termed a proper job. So when the Hollies got together and Ron Richards came up to see the band in the Cavern at Liverpool, he invited us down to do an audition at Abbey Road Studios, which we were successful, and that was it. I mean, we escaped in this, we were at the van. It was like the five guys that escape into the big wide world of music in a van with two amplifiers and a drum kit.
That's amazing. I can only imagine what kind of a rush that would have been like, to experience all
well,
that.
It was everything was new. It hadn't really been done before. We had artists. It was like variety and comedians and crooners, and we had Cliff Richard and other guys like that, and some good bands. But then the Beatles hit, and ourselves, and lots of other bands, because it was all bubbling away, and the Beatles were like the pressure valve, the escape valve, and we all came whizzing through, and it was an exciting time, because it hadn't really happened prior to that. Ordinary guys, making their own music. But it all goes. We have to give credit to the States, because that's where it came from. Because as kids, we'd be watching people like Buddy Holly and Little Richard, and various. I was a bit of a jazz guy, and all American music was our foundation. We grew up on that, and then we sort of like reprocessed it and shipped it back to the States, and by 1964, 65, the Americans were calling it the British invasion.
Yeah,
that was quite exciting, and going to the States for the first time and meeting and standing shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Little Richard and Gene Krupa and just people, just think of a name, and you were there and you were part of it. From sort of like schoolboys buying 45 singles and even 78s probably in the earlier days, to be there and actually being a success. It was the old cliche dream come true.
Right on. I am proud to welcome Bobby Elliott to Sam's Musical Mystery Tour on CoveFM, the voice of St. Margaret's Bay, Nova Scotia. Bobby has been the percussionist with the Hollies since 1963 and has been described as one of the finest drummers in all of pop rock, to which I agree. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Oh, how lovely. Thank you very much for that. Thanks, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, I meant to do it at the beginning, but we got all right up into the talk there. But that's cool though. I like that. Okay. So
well, you got that, did you?
I did.
You had the red light on. Yeah, good.
Yeah. As I look at the paper and as I look at the Skype recorder, the file's getting bigger, so I'm assuming it's recording. So, all right. So tell me about your very first experience performing in a band to a live audience. Did you find it particularly nerve-wracking?
Do you mean right at the beginning when I was a kid, a teenager? Well, I'll take it that way because okay. I started being the drummer in a band. First of all I'd go and see like other bands, in like dance halls and clubs playing sort of dance music for all the older type stuff, and because I liked any sort of drumming, I'd sit there and have a glass of beer and wait. And sometimes this guy, George Buckley, a drummer, he'd sing 2 or 3 songs and he'd say, "Hey Bob, come on up and play." So I'd get up there and play, and this built me up. I then realised I could cut it, and I started developing and working with other musicians and practicing hard and all the rest of it. But I was really keen on jazz. And I used to play in a jazz club every week when I was about 17 or 18, and there'd be 50 or 60 people in there smoking and drinking. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's a rock band, want a drummer, that Nelson." This is our local town, And what do you think? I'll say, well, rock. It's a bit, it's a bit boring, but yeah, I'll have a go. And we did an afternoon bop session with this band, a rock band, and from the jazz sort of thing, with a few people that weren't really interested, to like 500 girls there around the front of the bandstand. It was. I thought, well, it's a no-brainer. This rock and roll's for me. Here we go, and that was it. And then I met up with Tony Hicks, and I joined his band, the Dolphins, and the Dolphins spread their wings and started working in a larger area, right as far as Manchester and Liverpool, and sometimes we'd back British artists that would come up that had hit records and be a solo artist, and they knew the Dolphins could play a bit, so we back them and then go back to our ordinary job during the day. We're apprentices and all that sort of thing. But then word got round about our band, and we met up with Alan Clark and Graham Nash, and Eric Haydock was on bass in those days. And as I said before, we went down to Abbey Road Studios and started making records in 1963. In number 3 studio, we started off, and then it was just sort of a continuous stream of hits, certainly in the UK. Right the way through. I think the Guinness Book of Hits single says that we had more hits than the Beatles in the 60s and 70s. So that was quite something, And probably the most exciting thing in that time was my first trip to the States. The Hollies' first trip to the States in 1965, where we played at the Paramount Theatre in New York City. Along with Little Richard and a load of other acts, where it was the old traditional sort of Easter show where they showed a movie at 9 o'clock, and then they had the rock show with the King Curtis Orchestra backing the whole sort of ensemble, and we'd run on to the voice of the disc jockey called Hal Jackson, and Hal Jackson said, "Okay, now from little old England, fasten your seatbelts because here come the Hollies," and we'd run on and I'd jump on Ray Lucas's drum set. He was the drummer with the King Curtis Orchestra, and the guys had come on, and we'd do a couple of songs and go off. You were just allowed to do 2 songs, and that went on for 5 shows a day. So you had the movie at 9 o'clock. You had the live rock show with Shirley Ellis and the Exciters and the Hollies and Little Richard and this. So it was rock. It was movie rock show right through to close of time in the day. This went on for the whole Easter holiday for like a week or so, and it was very exciting for us because after hours I was able to go down Greenwich Village and see people like Miles Davis and Charlie Mingus and just sit with my feet just a couple of yards from these guys and just sip a beer and I was in heaven. Also, one point on the bill at the Paramount, as I said, was Little Richard.
Yeah.
And his guitarist at that time was an unknown Jimi Hendrix, who was there playing. And our friends, the Animals, were in town, the British band. And Chas, the bass player, Chas had said to me, "Hey, I've been down the Cafe Go-Go, and I seen this guy play the guitar with his teeth," and that turned out to be Jimi Hendrix. And Chas took him back to England at that time, and obviously started making records. He sort of linked him up with Mitch Mitchell, a friend of mine, on drums, and Noel on bass. It was Hey Joe, and there you go. That was Jimi was on top of the pops, and I saw it all, and it was very, very exciting. I saw Jimmy's first gig down at a club in London called the Bag of Nails, and that was with Mitch and Noel. And I'd forgotten at the time, but when I read Bill Wyman's book, Bill said I was sat next to him in the club there watching the event, and that was quite exciting as well. So on we go,
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that part about Jimi Hendrix's background. I knew about most of his discography and all the matter stuff. I didn't really know so much about the early days. That's pretty cool. Next question was, what was your very first gig like with the Hollies? How did that go?
Well, yeah, I joined the Hollies a few months after they started because they had a guy called Don who drove the van, and they didn't have much money. So Don was a drummer, and he drove the van, and they couldn't afford a van driver. So Tony had joined the Hollies, and he said, "Well, come, I want Bob to come along as well." And he said, "Well, you can't because you can't. Don's on drums." So when they then started to earn money, and they were able to employ Alan Clark's brother Frank to drive the van, and Don went somewhere else, and I moved in on drums. So going to the very first gig with the Hollies, I remember exactly where it was. It was at the Parr Hall in Warrington, and that was my first gig with the Hollies, and that was it. It's all those years ago, and I've got almost every gig noted down in my diaries. I always kept a diary, so I've got a record of everything. In
That's
fact,
awesome.
Graham Nash has got a book out around this time, I think, and he was asking me for dates and times and things like that, which I supplied him with. For example, when he first met Joni Mitchell in Canada and things like that, because he was in the Hollies when he first met Joni, and so we've been through quite a lot together.
Wow. You remind me quite a lot of me actually, because I'm always keeping like lists of things. Like I'm always keeping, like I did sort of keep a journal for a while, and I always like catalog what records I have and
Yeah,
stuff like that. But,
yeah. It was a bit more brief. The diaries were quite small in the early days. They've got bigger as time's gone on, but more detail. I wish I'd have kept more. I wish it had been the other way around. More detail in the early days and briefer now. but that's how it goes.
the next question was, but I know you covered some of that already. What bands proved to be the biggest influences on the Hollies? I know that you mentioned Gene Krupa.
Gene was a drummer that I grew up with as a kid, and there's an interesting story that I've just written a song about, and I've called it Krupa's Last Stand, or Little America. And the time I was telling you about when the Hollies were playing at the Paramount in 1965, just across the square was the what was it? The Metropole Bar. And I'd heard about this place because there'd been bands on there, I mean, the old bands, like Count Basie and things like that. And this was just a long bar that seemed to go maybe through to the other side of the block or something. And I went in there because I saw this sign outside, appearing tonight, Gene Krupa. And this was like one of my idols. It was like the drummer that Keith Moon copied off and all that, the matinee idol looks and the great hair and all the rest of it. And there he was playing behind the bar on his drums with just a saxophone and a piano, and nobody was paying a blind bit of notice. They were just drinking the beers, businessmen finishing work and all the rest of it. And poor Gene was thrashing away, and I felt very sad. It was an older man then, but it was still Gene Krupa, and to chart and give you an insight into how American music was heading at that time. So remember, that's 1965. So when I came back to New York the following year, 1966, that bar was still there. It was the Metropole, but it was go-go dancers, right? So
Right.
1966 and 1967, it was a topless bar. So you see how America, it almost charted the demise of true American swing bop music, and that's the theme of my latest poetry, which Dear Gene, Krupa's Last Stand.
Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing that. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm working. It's interesting. It's still in development, but it's fun. I like writing. I like writing.
I know the Everly Brothers. I know they were an influence on the band as well.
Yeah, the Ebbs. We work with the Ebbs as well because we obviously the Hollies sound was influenced by. I mean, Alan and Graham were big Everly Brothers fans when they were kids. So
Yeah.
and then when the Hollies started making records, Tony Hicks added a third harmony, a lower harmony to that two-way, and gave it that sort of like trademark Hollies three-way harmony sound. But as I was saying, we knew the Ebbs, and we met up with them in was it in the 1966, and they were over in England doing an album at Decca Studios, and they asked if we had any songs. Well, Alan and Graham, Tony had just been writing, and cut a long story short, they had an album out called, I think it was Two Yanks in England or Two Yanks in London, and we played on, I think, about three-quarters of that album. Three-quarters of that album, two-thirds of the album are Hollies, penned songs. So we'd just come back from the States. I was up north, so I didn't play on all the tracks. It was in fact it probably was Andy White, the guy who played on Love Me Do, the Beatles.
Yes.
But I played on a couple, and so like what you'd hear there's Jimmy Page on guitar, there's Tony Hicks on guitar, and I think it might have been John Paul on bass, and one track I think there's only me on one track, but to me it was we were there at the session, and so the circle had sort of come round from the influence of the Everly brothers to the Everly brothers singing Hollies songs, which was a great thrill,
Yeah, that's probably gonna be like the biggest compliment, like when you think about it, like a band that has been like that you sort of look up to, and then they're doing an album, dedicated to you guys, That's
yeah. Well, I won't say it was dedicated. I mean, I wouldn't take that much credit, but it was just a nice pat on the back to think that the guys' songs were up to it. I mean, it's like we'd pass the test. We'd come through, and we'd qualified, if you know what I mean.
Next question was there ever a single that you and the boys have doubted it would become like successful, but then it did become successful, like in the long run? Like, for example, the mega hit "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother." Like, did you and the boys envision that this song would reach the heights that it did?
Funny you should say. I knew you were going to say that, because I was just thinking, when you started asking the question, I thought, yeah, it was the Aint Heavy, and in fact, I just got the demo of it. I've just found the demo today written by two guys called Bobby Scott and Bobby Russell.
Yeah.
And Tony found it in a publisher's office in London, a music publisher's office, a fella called Cyril Shane. And Tony knew this old guy, and he'd go there. If the Hollies songwriting had dried up, he'd go around, Cyril, have you got any songs? Well, listen to this. And Cyril sort of specialised in like foreign songs, in a foreign language, but he'd play it to Tony and sort of sing the English translation in his ear as the music was going on.
Yeah.
And Tony got a bit fed up with this. He said, "Well, no, Cyril, no, it's nothing there suitable." And as it was getting up to leave, he said, "Oh, what's this?" And there was like a acetate, demo, white label thing there. "What's this?" So he said, "Well, I don't think it's for you, but have a listen." And it was a demo of "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother." And Tony brought it and played it to me and the rest of the guys, and Ron Richards, our producer. And wow, that's a bit different, because we'd just had on the back of a poppy sort of hit called "Sorry Suzanne."
Yeah.
So we were tarred with that poppy brush, in a way. And what's that? And the more I sort of heard it, I thought, there's something about this song, It was quite a messy, very, very slow, doomy sort of demo. But we went in the studio, and there was me on drums, Bernie the Calvert, our bass player, and Elton John on piano. And there were just the three of us at the bottom of the steps, number 2 studio. The grand piano was there, so with a cover over it, and we said, "Well, you don't usually move the grand piano because you can take it out of tune." So they just stuck the mics on it there. Elton got on the piano there, my drums next to the piano, and I think we probably nailed it in the second, third take. We had 1 or 2 technical problems on the first one. So the basic track was probably Alan singing a guide vocal, Elton on piano, me on drums and Bernie, and then we put the harmonies on, and then it was probably a month or so later, we put the strings on, by an arranger friend of ours called John Scott.
John Scott, yeah.
And that was it. And everybody we played it to, before it was released, said, "Wow, yeah." And we're all in love with it by then, and it didn't disappoint, did it? It's a Hollies anthem, really.
Yeah, I mean it's a tearjerker, when I listen to it. So, I didn't know that Elton John played on that one. I know he played on I Can't Tell the Bottom from the Top. I know.
Yeah, he was on Heavy. He was on a few album tracks as well. One called Perfect Lady Housewife, and I think he might have been on Hammond on that one.
Oh right.
Yeah, we used Reg Elton on quite a few things. Yeah, he was. He just signed to Dick James, and at that time, Dick played us a demo, and he said, but Elton wasn't there. But he said, "This is what Elton sung," and it was Your Song, and it was just Elton on piano with a trio, bass and drums. And Tony said, "Wow, Dick, can we have that?" And Dick sort of, you could see the light went on in his head. That we could see the commerciality or the attraction. Absolutely fantastic song. And if we'd have got that we'd have probably had the follow-up to Aint Heavy there. But Dick then phoned Tony the following day and said, "Nah, I've decided to go into the studio. I'm going to put some strings on it, and we're going to go in the studio." And and that was it. And what a great song that is.
Next two questions are a bit sort of similar. What, if you can recall, I don't know if you've kept record of this perhaps, but what was the largest crowd that the band performed to, and what was the smallest crowd that the band performed to?
The smallest and the largest?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Oh, I suppose the smallest had to be in the very early days, when we used to do the small clubs around Manchester. There were quite a lot of very small sort of basement places where people just had cola and stuff like that. They weren't sort of drinking clubs. And there was the Oasis and the Jungfrau, the Twisted Wheel, lots of them. So there couldn't have been many people in those places because they were only very small. Biggest crowd, cool. I don't know.
Or one of the largest, anyways.
Well, I'll give you an American one. When we did the reunion, we did a reunion with Graham Nash in the 80s. By 83, we did Soldier Field in Chicago, and I think we had about 28,000 people there.
Yeah,
which was big for us. But I think we probably played to more than that because in the very early days we went to Poland, behind the Iron Curtain then, and they'd never seen rock before. We used to play these stadiums and travel around on a steam train overnight. I'm going back to 1965.
Yeah.
So there were you go in these enormous crowds. So. And we've done. I mean, recently we were in where was it? Belgium, where it wasn't just us. There were other artists on, like Tom Jones. So there were lots of people. There were probably about 100,000 there on these big festivals where they got fun fairs and all the rest of it. So 100,000. But there were other artists on. So it's not for the Hollies. Not just. You can't take credit for that, but business is good. Generally, though, I mean, we're going to be starting another British tour in about a month's time. About 24 dates all around the UK and Dublin and Belfast, and we do the theatres that we're comfortable in doing. That we usually can sell them out. Nice 2,000 seaters where we do like one a night and maybe have a couple of days off a week to regroup. Because our show's like about 2.5 hours long now. It's we don't have any support. We don't go out with other bands apart from those festivals I was talking about, like in Europe. Our favourite sort of sport is we do the British theatres or the Australian theatres like we did earlier this year, where we do an hour, then we have an intermission, and then we do about an hour and a quarter. So it's an evening of Hollies. We don't have anybody else involved, and we like to work that way. We like to be totally in control.
Do you have a least favorite Hollies song? Is there a song that you're not particularly fond of?
Oh, yeah. I think there'd be a few of those. Yeah, yeah. Especially in the 70s when I'm looking at now. Yeah, there's got to be an album track. There's some of the album tracks that we did in the 70s where I could cringe a bit, and maybe one or two of the early ones as well. You know, the early days where maybe Stay with the Hollies and the following one, the in the Hollies style, where the sound would be a bit sort of thin and tinny. You know, I'd sort of cringe at that, and or maybe in the early days where I'd listen now. I don't usually listen to Hollies songs, but if I happen to hear one, I think, oh God, that's far too fast. But then you got to take into account the you know, the fire and the excitement of youth. You know, with the Hollies on stage in the early days, I mean, would go on. We were an exciting band, and our ploy was to make the to make the audience excited as well. So we'd really lay into it, you know. And so sometimes if you went in the studio in that frame of mind, you could be a bit too anxious and try a bit too hard, and I kind of hear that sometimes in the very early stuff. But then as I said before, some of the 1970s stuff that was written by a couple of guys in the band was I think unnecessary.
I have a bunch of your albums on vinyl, and I look at the the credits and all that matter stuff, and I see that a lot of them are recorded at Abbey Road. That's pretty much the same studio as the Beatles, isn't it? Like
well, there are three studios at Abbey Road, but mainly we'd use number 3 or number 2. Number 2 being the big one with the staircase that goes down there. There is a number 1 that's absolutely enormous that's used for film music and symphony orchestras. But yeah, I mean, and in the 60s we'd be in either 2 or 3, and the Beatles would be across the corridor in if we were in 2 they'd be in 3 and vice versa. So we were sort of neighbours, but well, work came first. You didn't really have much time to socialise apart from after hours when you went maybe go down a club or something like that. But if you were at Abbey Road, you were usually working. Certainly in those early days. I think later on, once you'd earned your stripes, so to speak, I think we started to waste a bit more time or experiment a bit. So certainly talking experimenting. I mean, those studios, because they were used for symphony orchestras and film music, you name it. Lining the walls of the studio, you would have a timpani. Tubular bells, glockenspiel, all Celeste, keyboards and things like that. So if you can listen to the progress of the Hollies by the second, the third, and fourth album, you hear these things being used because we say, hey, what's this do? Well, let's try these, pay you back with interest. So just banging on tubular bells there, or it was.
It added a nice touch to the song. I will say that.
Oh yeah, da 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 da. Yeah. We liked playing around. In fact, we used all. I mean, for example, Stop Stop Stop. Tony used a banjo for the first time. We were always looking for different things, and the electric sitar and things that he uses to this day on stage. So, and in fact, I think we used bagpipes on one track. So it got. Of course, there was the steel drums on Carry On, which were real steel drums, which we had. We had this West Indian guy come in, and the drums were way out of tune with the track, so we tried tuning them up with a sledgehammer. So that was quite fun.
Yeah. In terms of drums and stuff like that, drum kits, do you have like a preference? Like I know Ringo Starr. Like when I see those early performances, he has like a Ludwig kit. Like
I was a big Ludwig fan in the early days. And in fact, I became a Ludwig endorsee. I would go to the factory in Chicago, 1728 North Damon Avenue, and they would show me what the latest thing was, and I could choose a drum kit, and that was all rather special to me. At one point, I did use Premier drums at one time, a British drum kit, but I was Ludwig were the ones for me. And I've got quite a collection here of Ludwig and Gretsch in my barn here of classic stuff, vintage stuff. But I use Drum Workshop stuff now. I use DW, good American drums. I'm very happy with.
Yeah, I've heard that DW is a good brand. The record I wanted to cover for certain because this record is a mighty step up from previous records because of the increasing sophistication of arrangements and just the fact alone that every track on here is self-penned by the Clark Hicks and Nash collective in the group. I mean, this record, along with Butterfly Ties, is my all-time favorite Hollies records. It's very hard to say which one's better in my mind because they're both so immaculate. Now, tell me, if you don't mind, tell me about the sessions for this record, if you would.
Yeah, well, for certain, because around that time we'd go and work in Sweden. We'd play what they call the folk parks, and you play outdoors, and you travel around this beautiful country, these beautiful blonde people, and we'd be traveling in this big American truck. I forgot what it was, an Apache, or something name like that anyway, with a trailer with a gear in the back. And we'd write. The guys were writing prolifically then. So this was a lot of, for certain, because was the what had been written in Sweden. And I agree with you. That's one of my favourite albums. And it was just. I'm trying to think what song there. But yeah, there's Payback with Interest rather. And Clown with another instrument there, that Celesta, which is a keyboard, the chimey little keyboard there. And then we actually used that was a bit of a thrill because I was playing drums with a band. These studio musicians would come in, they were really experienced older guys, and I'd have to sit and play drums with them, doing it all live, and then my reading wasn't that good, and that'd be quite a trial, but it worked quite well. So I was really happy about that because that was taking me into sort of Gene Krupa territory, the big band situation. So it's a lovely album, and the artwork I'm very pleased with because that was done by Henry Dilts, Tad Dilts in Greenwich Village, and there's. I think, the more I think about that album, I really like it.
Actually, you covered two questions, and I'm glad that you did there, because the other question was about where it was taken, and you said Greenwich Village. I noticed on that record too, that kind of like I can sense the evolution on a number of tracks. Like one example is Clown, and it almost seems like an early psychedelic attempt, I guess.
Yeah. I think that was mainly a Graham song. Graham wrote that. It was. It was. Quite a spooky, a haunting. It's almost like one of those old films, an old horror film in a way. He was. Graham's writing was really emerging then, as was Alan's. I mean, they had different styles, but when you put them together, and Tony with the choruses, each one would specialise in a certain section. Alan was terrific on middle eights. He'd like, for example, Carry On, that the punching middle eight in that you're so like a woman to me. So that would be Alan. And it was great. The team was at its peak. The Clark, Nash and Hicks writing team was at its peak in 1966, and they were just churning stuff out. It was brilliant.
Yeah, there's some very solid tracks, I have to say. The next record is the follow-up to it, Evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty good follow-up. And I noticed with that one, you guys kind of enter more into a psychedelic atmosphere. Not on all the tracks, of course, but on.
Well, certainly the cover is the cover. I've just got I've got the original artwork here above me, framed with just the basic sort of picture with the. It's like we're trying to evolve through a womb, if you will. You've got Tony's hand there trying to get through this membrane and the rest of us are in the background in sort of flower power sort of outfits, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Old Evolution. Yeah, it was it was a bittersweet album for me with that because I actually was ill. I was I collapsed. The band were touring in Germany, and I actually collapsed and was taken to a Hamburg hospital. I got a burst appendix.
Oh my gosh.
And I carried on working till I collapsed, and everything ground to a halt. And my mother and father came over, and they thought it was, it could have been, really, really serious, like the end in a way. But the Germans pulled me through. They couldn't operate. I came home, I had to have rest, and then they couldn't operate for like a month or two till all the inflammation had gone. So meanwhile, looking at the Evolution tracks there, I didn't play on all those tracks. In fact, my old friend Mitch Mitchell was on there, and a drummer called Dougie Wright, and maybe Clem Catini. So the album, EMI wanted an album. They had to have the album. So the guys, even though they cancelled an awful lot of work, they had to get this completed. So I didn't play on every track on there. As I say, the three other guys played on there. So that was a bit of a disappointment because I wanted obviously to be involved in everything, but it was a pretty dodgy time for me, I tell you. Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah.
Anyway, we came through that.
Now, in terms of like the psychedelia alone, because when I listen to albums from from '66, '67 quite often, believe it or not, despite my age, I was born in 1991, so I listen to a lot of albums from that time, and I enjoy them, but I also sort of analyze the progression and stuff like that, like of experimentation, and some bands I noticed didn't quite like they found the psychedelia thing a bit of a hard thing to swallow at first. Was that the case for you guys, or did you guys have a considerable amount of confidence with that? Like you knew what you were doing. It's like, oh, okay, I know how we can do this kind of thing.
Well, we just didn't want to get hung with any. We didn't sort of go out to do anything purposely. The psychedelic thing was just a bit of a passing fad in a way. A bit pretentious, I thought. The people who were involved in it seemed majority of them were a bunch of phonies to me. I didn't really go. I got a bit bored with it all, and it was just a bit of fun. I mean, I didn't take it that seriously. I think the American bands handled it better than the British bands. In fact, that's where it came from. So I think that was the end of the. We were talking about like the British invasion earlier. I think the British rock scene created this new sort of homegrown, do-it-yourself music that all realised that all bands could do, and that was, in my mind, was a period from 1963 through to the start of like Flower Power, the psychedelia. 66, 67 maybe, 67, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we'd had our bit then. I think that's when the Americans found the footing and came back strong,
Really, I always thought American like psychedelia was inferior. I always found the British psychedelia to be better. But I mean, it's
well, I suppose, yeah. I remember going down Greenwich Village. Graham and I went down Greenwich Village to the Village Vanguard, and we saw Timothy Leary or his sidekick giving a bit of a lecture there with back projection and psychedelic sort of like moving slides at the back, which was it was all about sort of acid and things like that, really. And I thought, well, this is a bit boring, I prefer a pint of beer any day,
Yeah.
And that's how I was. I managed to escape from all that. I was very fortunate. I bypassed all that druggy bit, and because I found it, as I said, pretentious and pretty boring. All I wanted to do was make music and have fun, and probably that's my philosophy to this day.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to each their own, really. But yeah, I agree. I can agree with what you're saying and stuff like that. Okay, so next record, Butterfly. As I said, this one ties with For Certain Because is my all-time favorite Hollies
Mm.
record. I mean, from this one, there appears to be a flower power vibe in every direction, and
Yeah.
certainly the most diverse LP I think you guys have had ever released. So, what are your recollections from the sessions for this record? Like, I remember reading about it, and not everybody was too impressed or too enthused about this direction. I know Graham Nash wanted to kind of go in this direction, but
Oh well, no, at the time it was fine. It was fine. No, I remember we went to New York and we met with the record company in New York. I'm trying to think which company that would have been. Would it have been, I don't know, it was Liberty or Bad? It might have been with CBS by then, I don't know. But this guy in a sharp suit and shiny shoes said, "No, this butterfly stuff. No, we don't really want this stuff from the Hollies. We want you to be more like the Association." And
really,
that made us think. We thought we had a cracking album there. You know, we'd given him Butterfly, and he like told almost as good as said it's not what they want. It's a load of crap. You know, and that was a bit of a shock, to say the least. But no, looking on the positive side of it, I mean, I'm looking at the track listing now, and the when I go away to Spain occasionally, and sometimes when I talk to Graham or send him an email, I'll just dragging my feet by the edge of the sea. There's certain lines from those songs. Won't it be nice? Won't it be so nice to drag your feet by the edge of the sea? Oh, so we are da da da. You know, wish you a wish. All those songs have got this lovely little sort of frivolous sort of like lovely little happy holiday. I don't know. Thing that I often just send him literally drop him a line, and it's usually a line from a song.
oh, is that
So
right?
there's various things inside there, and looking at the one called Elevated Observations, that doesn't come into the song at all. That was my idea. That was my idea of the title. It's from the top of a hill, da 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 da. And what would you? I said, how about Elevated Observations? And I thought that sounded really cool at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kept it in.
That's one of my favorite tracks from the albums from the album. And I like the sped up a bit towards the end. And I'm so high up, I touch the sky. And then it gets.
Yeah,
I love that. I
yeah,
love that. I'm a sucker for that.
it's good. Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
And the other one, the other really psychedelic one, Try It.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I must play that album again. I haven't played it for ages.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I'm holding one of the records right now. It's I guess the American slash Canadian version of Butterfly, which would have been Dear Eloise, King Midas in reverse. And I've realized this the other day. It's like I noticed that Try It and Elevated Observations were left off, and I'm thinking, was it because both songs were about, well, try, why don't you try it now, or I'm so.
Maybe. Well, yeah, could well be. I didn't know that. So they left those tracks off the album, eh?
Yeah, like
Oh, that's sad. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I
Well,
didn't know. No, no, no. Yeah, they're good songs, aren't they?
yeah.
That's crazy.
I
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that. Like, well, with the American version of For Certain Because, which was obviously called Stop Stop Stop, it's the exact same track listing, but for some reason the American version of Butterfly is called Dear Eloise, King Midas in reverse, and the track listing goes Dear Eloise, Wish You a Wish, Charlie and Fred, Butterfly, Leave Me, and Postcard. That's side one, and side two is King Midas in reverse. Would you believe? Away, away, away,
Mm.
Maker, and Step Inside. So they kind of they kind of shuffled all the songs around in kind of a.
They did used to get busy. I mean, yeah, we never had an American album come out in the way that we planned it over here. They always changed it around.
I'm not sure
Going
why.
back to Imperial. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just thought that was the note. Well, okay, they must know what they're doing. I'll tell you what, they didn't know what they were doing with one thing. I mean, when we did Long Cool Woman, we did the album Distant Light, and a guy called Don Ellis phoned up Tony and said, "Hey, this Long Cool Woman, yeah." Tony said, "Yeah, the album track." He said, "Yeah, no." He said, "We want that as a single." And Tony, we said, "Well, yeah, okay, go ahead then." And look what that did. So that was that. They had it right on that one, I suppose. But we just went. That was just like something we did in the studio, like in about 2 takes or 1 take or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it's a very unusual song as on Cool Woman because there's only one voice. Usually we'd say, "Oh right, we're going to do a Hollies song. Let's put some harmony on it."
Yeah.
Well, we didn't with that. We went, "Yeah, that'll be fine. Next."
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of unique for. I mean, well, that reason alone, even that, there's
I'll
not.
tell you what helped us with that. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to Ron Richards, but he wasn't there. He was ill that day, so we didn't have our regular producer. But what we did have was the engineer. The recording engineer was a guy, and it was done at Air London, not at Abbey Road. The recording engineer was a guy called John Punter, who had been working with Tony Visconti on T-Rex stuff.
Yeah.
So you can maybe, I think Punter's input into that, if you will, I think help. I think we probably said, well, he probably said, "Oh, it's fine as it is, leave it." So he probably encouraged us to keep it nice and simple. So good old Punter, that's what I say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I've heard Long Cool Woman, I thought to myself, well, it kind of reminds me. The song reminds me, like, it has it feels like it has a bit of a Creedence Clearwater Revival influence.
Yeah, people used to say that at the time. We didn't set out to do it that way. Um, Alan Clark wrote it with Roger Cook and Roger Greenaway, as you can see on the label. And Clarky brought it in, and it was like a country and western thing. He sat down and just played it through pretty fast, Saturday night, it was down there. And Alan, over the years, when we've been sort of sat around passing time on in the dressing room or doing a TV show, in between rehearsals, he'd pick up a guitar and he'd play that figure, the intro, that is now Long Cool Woman. And he'd like mess around and da, 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 da. And he'd play this for like a couple of years. And so he played this thing. And I said, "Well, it's a bit fast. Let's slow it down. Let's take it down. Al, that that thing. What do you mean? That thing you play when you sit down. That bit of a lick you play. Oh, you mean this?" I said, "Yeah. Stick that on the beginning. Stick that. That's the intro." "Oh yeah." So we did that, and it worked. And that was it. We recorded it, and next.
Wow. After Butterfly, so between Butterfly and between Butterfly and Hollies Sing Dylan, it seemed like you guys were working on another project with Graham, but it didn't get finished or something. Like you had a bunch of songs like Man with No Expression, Horses Through a Rainstorm, Tomorrow When It Comes, Relax, like Anytime Before.
Yeah, it was a weird time because by then Graham had met David and Stephen. We've been in the States so many times and spent such long periods of time there that he'd started doing sort of getting together with them and doing demos and stuff like that. So we knew something was going to happen. Well, Ron, our producer, didn't. I mean, we recorded Marrakesh Express as well, just a track, bass and drums and guitar. That was never finished, obviously. Because Ron said, he didn't really like it. So we had all this sort of like political stuff going on that was a bit disconcerting. Because I'm a big sort of steam engine buff. I mean, anything to do with trains, I'm in there. So I loved that song. But this was happening in parallel with him touring and fro into the States, and that even though you're right, he didn't agree really with the Dylan thing, but we had recorded a couple of Dylan tracks with him before that. We'd done Blowing in the Wind and I think Times Are Changing. But again, the record company were wanting an album, and we thought we saw it as a way of keeping because the obviously the writing was drying up because of Graham pulling one way and the other guys pulling the other, and whatever the hell was going on. So it was just a way of getting some product together, and well, it was like in the top 3 albums over here. So that was all right there. But then it was a parting of the ways, December 8th, that was the final gig that Graham did. My birthday, December 8th, 1968, at the Palladium. It was a charity gig, and that's the last time that Graham worked with the Hollies as then, we did have the reunions at various times afterwards.
Yeah.
But that was that, and quite sad at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine. Like, did this for these sessions between the Holly Sing Dylan and the Butterfly sessions? Did this project have a title yet, or was it was it kind of too early to tell? Or
what was that? What do you mean, the Dylan thing?
No, like before that, because I have.
I see yeah, we're planning another album. Well, yeah, we were just trying to get tracks down. We didn't, we were all, if there were songs around, and we had some recording time blocked off, we'd obviously do them, But it was a strange period, we could feel there was an undercurrent there, and Graham. Also, we must remember that in his personal life, he'd split with his wife Rose, and I think the whole thing, he just wanted a new life, and that just, the David and Stephen thing, and meeting Joni and stuff, it just helped. It sort of, there it was. The signpost was there in big letters, transatlantic, and I think that just helped him make the decision, and I'm so pleased it worked so well for him.
Yeah, I guess a change of pace. Whatever could help it. I guess the time. There wasn't really a name for it at all then, basically at the time.
No, not that I recall. No, I think my tea might be. I might be getting beckoned for my tea in another. Have you got much more to go?
Yeah, I got a few more questions, and
all right.
I won't.
I think I got dinner's beckoning, but.
Okay, all right. I won't keep you too long.
Okay.
So the next question, and actually, I know we've pretty much. I think we covered most of this already. A friend of mine on Facebook. See, what I did on Facebook is I put a post up saying if you have any questions, just leave them below, and I'll ask you on their behalf. So a friend of mine, Todd Dillingham, a musician friend of mine on Facebook, wanted me to ask you what made the group decide to go in the direction of doing an entire album dedicated to Bob Dylan's work. And
well, why do we do a Dylan album?
Yeah, what sort of inspired it, basically?
We were already doing a couple of his songs. We were doing them for a while. It was just we just loved his songs, and we knew we could put a different spin on them, and we could see the melody was there that would take a great harmony, and it was just we just loved the guys loved singing them, and it was just a nice little showcase, and it was a way of us sort of like doffing our hats to Bobby Dylan, and that was it really, yeah, I mean it was well received. It was popular with the fans, and I suppose we did the job, didn't we?
Yeah, it's a pretty good take, I'd say. So, aside from the brief reunion at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, does a reunion album with all the original members, does that look like a vision that could become a reality?
Oh no, definitely not. No, Tony and I weren't there at the reunion. We couldn't go. What was it, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing? We were actually on tour over here. The night it happened, we were playing at the London Palladium on a British tour. So unfortunately, we couldn't. I would have loved to have seen certainly Graham again and Alan, yeah, it was a bit sad that, but I've got the award, I've got the statuette here along with my Ivor Novello award, and
Yeah.
it's nice to have them. But no, I mean, you can never say never. I mean, I think Graham's over here quite soon with the guys. But I noticed that when he's doing the Albert Hall, we're playing somewhere like Manchester or Liverpool. So I'm not going to be able to get a chance to see him unless there's like on a day off that coincides with the two of us. But I keep thinking that maybe Graham will come on stage with us at some point. I know he suggested it before, but it's just it's the mechanics that get sorting it out on a tight schedule. And he's obviously got his book to promote, because I know he's doing a presentation thing up here up north at a literary thing, talking about his book. So
Yeah, I heard.
Who knows? I might bump into him. But Elaine, his sister, lives not far from here. She lives the other side of Manchester, so she keeps me in touch with what's going on, and she always comes to Hollies gigs and comes backstage for a glass of wine. So we're up to speed with what's going on. But one day we could as well just appear on stage. I mean, Graham's up for that, as you know. We did the Buddy Holly reunion thing, and the tour we did in 83. But the Buddy Holly thing, what was that, 1993 maybe?
The Buddy Holly thing? Oh, that the album came out in 1980. From when I was looking it up a while.
1993. No, we did a tribute to Buddy Holly that was on Decca. There was a lot of country bands on, and we were backing Buddy Holly. Graham had this tape of Buddy Holly doing Peggy Sue Got Married.
Right.
And Graham came over to Abbey Road, and we had Buddy singing, and then the Hollies backing him.
Right on.
Did you know about that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
for the most part. Do you keep in touch with Alan regularly?
Alan Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan. He lives in England. Yeah, but he's really doesn't want to. He's out of the business. He's not really interested anymore. He's the rock and roll got to him. I mean, he had to. He couldn't do it anymore. 1999 was the last time he appeared on stage with the band.
Yeah, I remember.
I do see him occasionally, but he's got his grandchildren and all that stuff, and he's content as he is.
One question my dad had, because he's a big fan of the Hollies as well, right?
Oh, good.
He asked, what do you like to what do you enjoy playing more, like the ballads or like the upbeat pop songs?
It's probably the biggest. I mean, we've got some new stuff that we do that the fans have quite taken to. But apart from that, it's got to be the biggest. It's got to be Long Cool Woman, when the band can. We've got a sort of an elongated version of that we're doing towards the end of the show. And obviously, I never get fed up of playing the Aint Heavy, and then there's the air that I breathe. It's just the big stuff that goes down well. But we do. Sometimes we just change things around a little. Just alter the arrangement slightly, just for our own fun, and we get a kick out of that. So it's basically Long Cool Woman is rocking more than it's ever rocked at the moment. So I'm quite happy about that. When the old jump up, that makes me feel good.
How do you think the music industry has changed, like since you've started recording and gigging with the Hollies, like up to the present day? Like, what would you say would be the differences between like now and then?
Well, there's various stems to that. You've got the technical side we could start with, where those early days at Abbey Road that we talked about, we started recording on quarter-inch tape.
Yeah.
Where you could not really multi-track. You could, add a tambourine or something like that, but that was about it. So in those early days at the Abbey Road studios, it was just quarter-inch tape, and shortly after it went up to 4-track, which was about inch tape. So you got the technical side progressing, and also, like for example, a drum kit in the studio in those days, the engineer will put one microphone over the kit, over the set, which was, I had to fight to get a microphone put on the bass drum in those early days, so it's technically it's totally transformed, as you will understand. The other side of it is it's a massive industry now. I mean, it's, as you know, but in those days it was all a bit sort of naive, and you know, it's before the accountants and fashion sort of the fashion advisors and makeup artists and all that had started. It was all very much in its infancy. You know, you just did what you thought was right. You didn't have any guidance really. You might have had a publicist. Now there's armies of them, you know, and bodyguards and limos and all that. Of course, we got the limos as we went along, but and then now you've got the X Factor type of things where, you know, it's mainly people are chasing celebrity rather than talent.
Yeah.
And kids are now dreaming of being a celebrity rather than dreaming of being a great musician, which saddens me a bit. I prefer people to be, you know, want to pursue, want to, you know, just rather than dressing up and you know, whatever and all the rest of it, chasing the celebrity thing. You know, let's have music. Let's develop music. Let's, you know, get kids loving. Well, I think talent will always win through, and I think you'll always. It's not as bad as it might seem. I mean, a lot of critics say, "Oh, yeah, it's all Simon Cowell's fault and all this, that, the other." I mean, there's always good new stuff coming through, and it always will. So that keeps, you know, I've got great hope for youth and talent coming through. It always will. It always will win through.
Yeah. Well, one thing I find the difference to be, as well as, you know, as what you said. Yeah, it doesn't seem like nowadays, and when you talk about like the big radio stations and all that other stuff, it doesn't seem that talent is the first the first thing on the list kind of thing. It seems to be more about like the glitter rather than the substance, I find.
Well, you got it. I mean, that's basically what I was trying to say. But also, you mentioned radio stations. Certainly in our country, in those early days, there weren't any radio stations. We had the BBC, and it had the light program or the home service. I mean, you had those two things, and we had a thing called Radio Luxembourg that was piped over from Luxembourg, and the signal kept dropping in and dropping out, and you'd listen to the top 20 on there, you know, on a very bad signal, and there was nothing else in our early days. Now there's a radio station in every village, you know, they're everywhere, and basically all playing the same records.
Yeah.
all the same pop.
It's true enough.
But there we are. That's progress, folks.
What was I gonna say? Oh no. Oh no, what was I gonna say? Okay. I guess you said.
Go on, Sam. Go on, Sam. You can do it.
I can do it. I can do it. So you said you had to get going shortly or something.
Well, so it's now sort of like 6:15. It's like my dinner or tea time, as you might call it here.
Right.
So she's got some lasagna in the oven. But yeah, I've got a couple of minutes. You're all right.
That sounds good. Love lasagna.
But we can start sort of winding down if you would.
Yeah. I'm just
Do you need any background on the band, or do you need any photographs or anything? I could email you if you need anything.
Well, actually, I was thinking, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you could send me like a photograph of the band, because what I was hoping to put this on like SoundCloud or on YouTube or something, like once it's all edited and all that other stuff, right?
Mm.
If you wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, I've got early stuff, and I could do sort of then and now and all that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Cool. I'm just trying to find that Facebook post there. Okay, so I got a question from a fellow on it's on the Hollies Facebook fan page there. A fellow named Cameron Burns says, "I'd like to know if there are any plans to sort out the Hollies' back catalog and reissue all their albums together for the first time. Most of their studio albums are now out of print and are very hard to find. Also, would the Hollies be interested in releasing some more live material from the archives, such as complete versions of the 1966 Stockholm concert, and well, that's kind of a big question, in 1968 Lewis M. Odeon concert, as well as issuing the 1971 Australian Don't Get Sunburnt tour recordings?"
Possibly. I mean, I've heard and seen most of that stuff, and yeah, we have used some of it has been used actually. The Lewisham thing. There's a couple of tracks been used on that. There's one of them is Times They Are Changing with Graham. So that's been used on maybe on the Rarities album. We've had Rarities albums out that people maybe have missed.
Yeah.
Well, one thing occurred to me that the EMI are no longer here. It's now Warner's. And,
Is that right?
And the reunion just done. I mean, the reunion album that we did with Graham, What Goes Around Comes Around in '82, '83, was actually on Warner's. So that means that Warner's can now, and they own the EMI stuff, and now that means they could put that with the rest of our catalogue.
Right.
That's
cool. I didn't know that about EMI.
Yeah, EMI are defunct. Warner's have taken them over. Yeah, that's in this country anyway. I don't know. I don't know how it affects the rest of the world.
I tell you, this is really cool, Bobby. It's cool because I mean, I'm a drummer myself, right? I've played for off and on for about 10 years, so since I was 10 years old, right?
Oh, good.
So 11 years old, and it's really amazing. Like I think of British the so-called British invasion groups, and I think of you guys and stuff, and I think of the Animals, Yardbirds and all that matter stuff, and it kind of reminds me of vinyl, and it's amazing how vinyl is coming back in style now. Like it's really come back, and I mean I'm looking at my collection now. I got like 90 or so records, and I've only I've never played a vinyl disc until 2011. Like I've never seen how that worked. Right? I never seen how that worked. So I mean, to other people it's like, oh yeah, records, but to me it's amazing, right?
Yeah. I just love the artwork. A 12-inch album. It's so nice to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a CD is just like a little, it's just a little thing.
Yeah.
One eye for both pages, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love those. The big albums, the old albums that you opened up, and the artwork, and Hypnosis, and all those guys. And yeah.
Yeah.
Good days. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that Hypnosis did the design for a few of your albums back when.
Yeah. They did Distant Light for us, and one or two others, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting call from the kitchen.
Okay.
Chef's boiling over.
Okay. I just want to finish off with saying, Bobby, I want to thank you for taking some time out to take part in this interview for Sam's Musical Mystery Tour on CoveFM. It has been a great privilege to talk to you today about your experiences with my all-time favorite pop group. Not one Musical Mystery Tour program airs without at least one Hollies track somewhere in my playlist. And every time a Hollies song plays through my speakers, either in my car, while driving to work, in a CD player, or on my turntable, I always think of the well-crafted harmonies between Clark, Hicks, Nash, and later Sylvester. I also think of the musicianship between the members, Tony's superb guitar work, Eric Haydock, and later Bernie Calvert's exceptional bass playing, and of course your fantastic drumming, serving as the Hollies' beat. Altogether, in a nutshell, I mean, it makes for a revolutionary pop group. There's a motto that goes nicely with how musicians enjoy what they do, and it's simple: never stop doing what you love. And that's one thing I have to say. I mean, it's to anybody really, anybody who's a musician, and never stop doing what you love.
That's great, Sam. Thank you for that. That's it's been really interesting, and you've done your homework, and it's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Bobby.
Okay, Sam. See you
later.
later.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye for now. Thank you so much.